Okay, and I'll just tell them the etiquettes and then start. Okay, so let me begin with the class. Okay, so right now I have unmuted all of you. Okay, I have muted all of you. So none of you will be able to speak. Okay, because if at least 3 to 4 people are speaking, that disturbs the whole scenario. Okay, so just before beginning the class, I will tell you few things regarding etiquettes of managing this Zoom meeting. Okay, first thing, if you have any doubt, raise your hand. Okay, so once the class begins, let us not interrupt in between. At the end of the class, I will take all your questions. If you have any question, you just raise your hand. Okay, or you can put a message in the chat. Preferably you raise your hand, I will unmute you, you can speak to me, and then we can discuss so that everybody can listen to us. Chatting will take lot of time. So as you all know, the session will be for only 40 minutes, and again we can go back to the session. So I will be clearing all of your doubts, there is no problem. Okay, so we'll start with the class in some time. Okay, so right now all of you put your hands down. Okay, don't raise your hands. I'll be beginning the class in some time. Okay, slide. I'll be sharing the recording. It's recording, getting recorded. Okay. ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ಇದು ಮತ್ತೆ I'll get only this screen. If I want to go back, if okay, ಮ್ಯಾಲ್ ಹೋದ್ರೆ right. Okay, okay. Hmm. Okay. Okay. So let me begin with the class now. Okay. So as you people remember, the last class which we took was about uh, so last class what we took was about coronavirus. So that is the most hot topic now. So this class will be an extension of that topic where I will be telling about certain things. See now all of you. Okay, so the class will be continuation about that topic. Last class, probably if 15 to 20 days back, we had a discussion regarding the what knowledge we had at that time. Okay, so now what has happened? We are all flooded with the knowledge. Okay, so by the WhatsApp University, so all of us have so much of knowledge that some knowledge may be correct, some knowledge may be wrong. Okay, so let us go to the basic things. I'll not go in depth into what you people already know, the pathophysiology, the investigation. Now, what is the latest? So, ideally, now what all the healthcare professionals in India, we should be following the guidelines which are given by the ICMR and Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, which they are updating in and out. Okay, what is important for us? See, as a doctor, you people, you may be facing certain questions by your relatives, what to do, what not to do. So what questions we are commonly facing and how to answer to the people, and how to educate the people in the right way, the people we know. Okay, so see, one, I am sharing the knowledge with 100 people now, you again will be sharing it with so many people. So I'll just talk about the things which are unclear to most of the people, or you are confused regarding those things, what to do, how to go about. Okay, so the first slide is regarding when to suspect. See, these are the guidelines which are being changed day in and day out. Okay, so as of today, this is our guideline how we are going about. Okay, whom am really, whom I should see now. In summertime, people are like eating maybe ice creams, drinking cold water. Most of them are maybe having a upper respiratory tract symptoms. So whom ideally should be screened, whom in whom we should really suspect that they are having a corona. Okay, so when I am supposed to suspect, first thing, all symptomatic patients who have undertaken international travel in the last 14 days. This guideline was previously there. All symptomatic contacts of a laboratory confirmed case means one person is positive, COVID positive. For example, in Gulbarga right now we have 9 COVID positive confirmed patients. So any of their relatives, if they become symptomatic, they are like a suspect case. All symptomatic healthcare personnel. For example, I am a treating physician. I am going to hospitals. I am visiting all the hospitals and all. So if I become symptomatic tomorrow, so I am directly a suspect COVID. Okay, I should be screened for a COVID. Likewise, any all the doctors who are coming to the hospitals, who are looking after their private hospitals, all of them should be screened for this. Then all hospitalized patients with severe acute respiratory illness. Okay, so any patient who has come to us with ARDS like fever, breathlessness is there, hypoxia, saturation is low, X-ray showing pneumonia patch. So any patient who is having severe acute respiratory illness, which means like hypotension, patient's respiratory rate may be more than 24 or more than 30, whose saturation may be less than 92. All these people fit into category of severe acute respiratory illness. Then you have asymptomatic direct and high risk contacts of a confirmed case. For example, there was a patient who was tested positive on April 4th. Okay. Now I was his primary contact, means I was the brother of a suspect patient. Okay, he who was tested positive on 4th. Okay, though on 9th April, now I am asymptomatic, but I was in direct contact with that patient, means it is today's 5th day of my contact with that patient. So on 5th day, irrespective whether you're symptomatic or asymptomatic, you are going to be tested for COVID-19 by the concerned lab which is there in ESIC. Okay, so these are the certain people who are like COVID suspects. So as we discussed in the last class, what are the symptoms? You all know the symptoms. Okay, so fever, most important symptom. Cough, second most important symptom. Fatigue, third most important symptom. Breathlessness. Okay, these are the very important symptoms. Usually what they are telling is in a COVID patients, coryza, that is running nose and all, are not so important. So fever, cough, breathlessness, fatigue are the important symptoms in a suspected COVID patient. Okay. So now coming to like there are certain things which we are all confused. Okay. So how to wash the hands? Okay. One of the important thing what we should know or what we should educate other people is how to wash our hands. Okay. So in the first step, if you can see, in the first step, what you can see, how do you start a tap? Preferably, you can start with an elbow, with your elbow. Okay. If automatic hand sanitizer is there, otherwise use an elbow to put on the soap in your hands. Okay. Then you have to rub the hands. Okay. With your palms facing each other. Rub your hands. Next step is right palm over the left dorsum. Okay. So your right palm should be over the left dorsum. You're able to see the slides, and you have to interlink the fingers. Okay. This is the third step. Fourth step is your palms facing each other, interlink the fingers and rub it. Fifth step is back of your fingers. Okay. You can, as you can see in the this thing, you have to move in right and left position with your fingers crossed against each other. Then the sixth step is you're able to see the thumb. Okay, you have to clean your thumb this way. All the fingers, then comes the thumb, then comes the fingertips. Okay. Once you do all this, next step is finish everything, then close the tap. After you close the tap should be cleaned with a tissue paper. Okay. So these are the few steps which are recommended by WHO, which all of us should be following. Now there is a lot of confusion regarding whom who should wear what mask and all those things. Okay, so the first thing, okay, the first thing what it should be is who should wear. Now the government has made everybody should wear a mask now. Okay, so all the people, initially the guidelines was the common public need not wear a mask. So in the last 1 week, the WHO has changed the guidelines. They are telling that everybody should wear a mask. Okay, so this guidelines has changed now. So all of us should be wearing a mask, be it a homemade cloth mask or everything. The general public should wear a mask when they are coming outside. Then we have two important masks which we are confused. Okay, one is the triple layer mask, other is a uh, the other mask is a okay. So this is a triple layer mask and this is an N95 mask. Okay, so I will show you later how to wear those masks. These are the two masks. So who are the people who are supposed to wear an N95 mask? Okay, as you can see here, these are the two categories where their people are supposed to wear N95 mask. Anybody who is performing a procedures where aerosols are generated. What do you mean when aerosol is? Small particles are generated where virus can transmit by airborne. Okay, as we all know, COVID is an droplet spread. It is not an airborne spread. But during the procedures like bronchoscopy, nebulization, which is done very commonly when we put a patient on non-invasive ventilation, or when we are intubating a patient, or whenever you're giving high flow oxygen, or during all these procedures, aerosols are generated. What these aerosols do is they come into the air. So during this time, the transmission to the healthcare professional is very high. Okay, that is why that time you are supposed to wear an N95 mask. So N95 mask should be worn by healthcare professionals like doctors or nurses who are performing this procedure. Except these two categories, nobody else should wear an N95 mask. There is one more category where people should be wearing a N95 mask, is the caregivers giving care to the patients with a confirmed COVID patient. Okay, so there is COVID patient in our home. I am taking care of my COVID patient, so I am going in close contact with that patient. Only those are the people who are supposed to wear an N95 mask. Okay, so this should be clear. So even if you have stored your N95 mask in your home, don't use it. Okay, don't use it routinely. Okay, and N95 mask actual guidelines tell that it should be used only once for 8 hours. Okay, as we are running short of there is scarcity going on, new guidelines are coming up where you can use it repeatedly every fourth a day. Okay, ideally don't use it. You should spare it. If somebody turns out to positive in your home, that time you can use it, or you can give it to the people who are there working in the ICUs who should be using the N95 mask. For rest of the times, you should always wear a triple layer mask. This is how to wear a mask. Okay, so when we are using a mask, see, there are two things. Okay, the darker side, the darker blue will be always outside, and the inner white part will be always on the inner side. Okay, so when we wear a mask, it should cover the nose, mouth, and the chin. From the nose till the chin, it should cover everything. Okay, so once we wear a mask, you are supposed to touch only this part. And remember, whenever you are wearing a mask, make sure that you wash your hands prior to wearing a mask. That is the most important step. Any mask, wearing a triple layer mask or wearing an N95 mask, wash your hands prior to wearing a mask. Okay, then this is about the N95 mask. How to use an N95 mask? So wash your hands, hold it like this. You have to hold the mask this way, and the lower string should come below, upper string should come above at the level of the vertex. Once you wear this, at the level of the nose part, you can tighten it, then blow the air outside and ensure that the seal is totally tight. Means the air is not moving outside. Okay, so this is the way how you wear an N95 mask. Then there is something called as PPE. All of you might be hearing, what is that PPE? Okay, personal protective equipments, or it is also called as hazmat suit. HAZMAT suit. What is that hazmat suit is? HAZ is hazardous. MAT is material. Okay, so it's a hazardous material suit. So there is a protocol. How to donning is how do you wear it? Doffing is how do you remove it? Okay, so this is the protocol. So whenever we are wearing donning sequence, okay, whenever we are wearing, first thing should be hand wash. So any protective equipments you're wearing, the most important point is a hand wash. Okay, wash your hands. The most dirtiest parts which are exposed everywhere is the head and the foot. So before wearing any other things, secure these areas. So first wash your hands, wear a cap, shoes cover. So cover your head, cover your shoes. Once you cover your cap and shoe cover, use a hand rub, then wear gloves. Once you wear the gloves, put put the gown, then the mask, then the goggles, then the hood. So easy to remember is once you wear the gloves, start from below upwards. One is first is a gown, mask, goggles, hood, from below upwards. At the end of wearing all those things, you wear one more set of gloves. This is how you are supposed to wear a donning. So this probably all of you may not come into the picture. Just for your information, I'm giving. This is the one which the people who are treating like us, who are seeing the COVID patients, we are supposed to do this. We are supposed to follow this protocol. Okay. Now coming to the testing. Okay. So there are again a lot of confusions regarding who should be tested, when should be tested, what is the sensitivity of the test, and all those things. So this is about the sensitivity of. Now the commonly what we are testing is two ways. One is a PCR method. The other is serology. Okay, serology is antibody detection. Okay, IgM and IgG. Whereas the PCR method is it directly picks up the RNA of the virus. Okay, so when we do the RNA PCR method, what we are commonly using is nasal swab and pharyngeal swab. Okay, we are taking nasal swab and pharyngeal swabs. If you do a BAL, you can take the BAL fluid. So the sensitivity depends upon from where the sample has been taken. Okay, so if it's a BAL fluid, 93% sensitivity. Brush biopsy 46%, sputum 72%, nasal and oropharyngeal 63 and 32%. So if you look at this, the sensitivity is only 63%. Means if I test 100 positive COVID patients, I am going to pick up only 60 patients. 40% of the patients will be negative by this method. If the patient is tested positive, it has a very good specificity. Means if it comes positive, 100% it is positive. But if the test is negative, it doesn't prove that the patient is COVID negative. Okay. So only 60% will be positive, 40% will be negative. So what we are supposed to do in these things is we can repeat the test after 2 to 3 days, take multiple swabs. Clinically, if we feel it is a COVID patient, travel history is there, something like that, viral pneumonia like picture, like bilateral pneumonia is there, total counts are normal, patient is in ARDS, you can still treat the patient as a COVID suspect, COVID patient. Follow the protocol like a COVID patient, okay, rather than treating them as negative. This is very important. The sensitivity is only 63%, means out of 100 positive COVID patient, only 63 are positive, rest are negative. So we are testing these genes, okay, the E gene, ORF gene, and RDRP gene. So these are the genes which are being tested by RT-PCR method. So now government of India last 2 days back, now by probably by 10th or 12th of April, we'll start testing for rapid antibody tests. So this is very simple test. Take the blood, like it is testing like dengue serology, IgM, IgG. Okay. So by this method, we can test lot of patients because this is cheap. Probably 1,000, 1,500 will be able to get a serology test. RT-PCR is very expensive, very cumbersome. It takes 1 day to give the results, whereas serology can give you in minutes. Okay, 10 minutes you are done with the report. So what we can do, if you are suspecting somebody patient with the influenza like illness, so we get a lot of patients, fever, cold, cough, sore throat, all those symptoms. Are we supposed to do an RT-PCR for everybody? No, we are not doing it for everybody. But if we still, okay, we feel that this patient may be positive, but not fitting into criteria for RT-PCR, what you do? You do an antibody test. Antibody test turns positive, you can do the RT-PCR. Antibody test is negative, RT-PCR is negative, then it is a non-COVID. RT-PCR is negative, PCR is not done because it is not available, then you can repeat the test after 10 days. If it is positive, treat it as a COVID positive. Okay. So this is about the serology. The problem with again the serology test is the results are come after the body to develop antibodies. It takes time. So if the patient has gone on first day, second day, third day with symptoms, the test may show negative. This is the fallacy of doing an antibody test, because the body takes time to develop IgM, IgG antibodies. So initial period symptom onset first day, second day, third day, always a PCR would be better than a serology test. Then there are certain confusions regarding how we are treating. Everybody wants to take hydroxychloroquine now. So let me clear the air regarding that. See, there are two things. One is prophylaxis, other is specific therapy. Okay. Prophylaxis should be taken only by healthcare professionals. For example, I have taken prophylaxis because I might get exposed in my OPD in Basveshwar Hospital, everywhere. I'm a treating consultant physician where there is a possibility that I may catch a COVID-19. Okay. So this is for only those healthcare professionals like sisters, IMs, doctors, PGs, interns who are working in the hospital. Okay. So how we are giving prophylaxis? Prophylaxis is day one, you take hydroxychloroquine, 400 mg BD. After that, every week, 400 mg for 7 weeks. Mind you, there is no clear-cut data on the safety or its effectiveness. Few small studies have indicated that it might help. Okay, chloroquine is a molecule which can prevent binding of virus to the our respiratory epithelium. Okay, it prevents binding. So that is how it is being projected and it is being used. Okay, that is about the prophylaxis. So it should be only for the healthcare professionals or the people who have to come in direct contact with the COVID positive patient. Then when coming to the treatment, what is followed? So what I put up is the guidelines given by ICMR. Okay, so this is the guidelines what we are supposed. If there is a COVID positive confirmed patient with severe disease, as you can see here, with severe disease requiring ICU admission. Okay, mild disease you need not treat again. Okay, mild disease only symptomatic. Give only azithromycin, give some paracetamol, give levocetirizine. If the patient is having a severe disease and requiring ICU admission, for these patients, this is a specific therapy. Means these things we can give, like hydroxychloroquine, 400 milligrams twice a day on day one, followed by 200 milligrams twice a day for 4 days. Okay, in combination with azithromycin 500 mg OD for 5 days. But there's a problem with this combination. That is, both the drugs are known to prolong our QT. Okay, when we do an ECG, there is something called as QT interval. So these drugs should be administered under close medical supervision with monitoring for side effects, including QTC interval. Okay, so we monitor QTC interval before giving this drug. And there is a criteria given up by American College of Cardiology. Okay, American College of Cardiology has given us criteria regarding risk score for drug associated QT prolongation. So there are points like age, more age, female, patient on diuretics, baseline QTC more than 440 milliseconds, potassium less than 3.5, patient on any drugs, myocardial infarction patient, sepsis, heart failure. All these points are carry certain points. If the points is less than 6, no risk, very low risk. 7 to 10, moderate risk. More than 11, high risk. It doesn't mean that more than 11 points we are not supposed to give the drug. We have to give the drug, but we have to closely monitor the patients. For all practical purposes, young people who are less than 30, 40 years, no comorbidities, no cardiac illness, you can directly give HCQS if you want. Okay. You can just do a baseline ECG and you can do it, because none of the criteria fit into that. Okay. So practically speaking, if you are young, no comorbidities, no cardiac disease, not on any medications, do a baseline ECG and you can take. Even if you don't do a baseline ECG is also okay, but on a safer side, you can get done a baseline ECG and take the molecule.